Welcome back to The Line. If you live or work in Santa Fe, you've probably seen ads about a soda tax that voters will have a chance to weigh in on this May. Matt Grubbs from the Santa Fe Reporter recently looked at how much money is being spent on campaigns for and against the proposed tax. Now, money collected from the tax would go towards early education programs. Janice, were you surprised to read about $500,000 is on the table, or has been spent rather, on combining these campaigns? That's a lot of money around these parts for something like this.
I was stunned to read that there was that much angst about it, and you've got to go, oh, why are we doing this? And I have to tell you right off the bat, the arrogance of a group of people saying, we're going to make this decision because we want to save all the poor people. I found horribly arrogant. But if you read all the literature, it says, we're going to save the most vulnerable population from this evil soft drink that kind of spans, it's not quite as bad as Philadelphia, but is there really any history to sin taxes and sin taxes actually changing behavior?
That's a fair question. You say affirmative on that right off the bat.
All you have to do is look at the tobacco issue. This is directly parallel to the tobacco issue. When there's an increase in taxes on tobacco, and we did this in 2010 at the state level, there is a decline in the use of tobacco consumption, particularly amongst young people who do not have the disposable income. The same is even more true about soda, which is one of the largest sources of calories for our increasingly obese elementary
We should work in the word sugar
students.
in here. That's the big thing.
Sugar is addictive
sugary drinks,
in the same way that, well, not exactly the same way as tobacco, but it is also addictive.
So
in that
light, this proposal of 2 cents for every ounce of sweetened, sugary, pop that goes out the door,
It isn't just pop.
Well, that's true too. And other
not.
things too. That's right too. Is this a credible way to fund early childhood education in your view? Is it reliable? Is it does it make it okay? I guess what I'm asking is the result.
Well, everyone prefers a broad-based tax to fund education. It's more reliable.
Okay.
But we don't have the funds for that. And so in the case of the tobacco tax that we passed in 2010, that was also earmarked for early childhood education, which there is a growing consensus that that is the key to our future. However, Richardson line item vetoed the earmarking to early childhood education.
So do you think it's appropriate for the city to be picking up early childhood education? And that's, there again, is another taxing modem. I think that the state should be doing that if you do it at all.
Mark, I want to pick up on that. That's a good question. What do you think on that?
Well,
should the state be?
Well, that's a good question. This whole thing is fascinating. What's happening in Santa Fe? It's a heavyweight contest.
Yeah, it is.
Between supporters and opponents. And one of the things that's interesting to me, how in a in a blue state that's elected red governors for 16 of the last 24 years, we have a test market in Santa Fe where we're marketing very progressive causes, whether it's Santa Fe is a sanctuary state, whether it's forcing developers to put affordable housing in every development and subsidized by middle and upper income homeowners, that kind of thing. But it's a microcosm of a number of issues. So, the whole idea of a special election, for instance, is very interesting, right? So you're going to bring, a tiny number of people, and these are people that are strongly for or strongly against. It's very interesting.
The efficiency of the money spent for the amount of voters that might participate, it's not in a presidential election, like you're saying, it's markedly lower, the participation rate. Well, so the amount of money gets crazy at that point.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, too, is how they're marketing it. So in other states, they've tried this in Berkeley and Philadelphia, and they weren't able to sell this idea to voters by saying, well, listen, it's for health causes and health projects, right? So people said, this is social engineering. So they're test marketing the idea, let's make it for the kids. And so that's kind of a unique aspect of this particular project in
Right.
Santa Fe.
Laura, interesting, Santa Fe has some budget issues. They need the dough. I mean, they really, really need the money. Is this a bad way to go? I mean, who does it really harm at the end of the day besides people just want to have a sugary drink or two?
Thank you. I'm anti.
Time out.
Well, let me respond. I'm anti any kind of food tax, and I
Okay.
think this is a food tax. I don't like. I don't like this tax, but I don't live in Santa Fe, so I'm not going to vote on this. I do think that the goal of it and what they're proposing to use the money for is a laudable goal, and there's definitely groups that are supporting it because of that. But I think it's to me a weird kind of nannyism that in government that occurs to try to control what people do and don't consume. And I think people should have the right to live however they want to, and it shouldn't
the
have
point
to
from the
affect them.
senator about the tobacco tax. I would be one of those people, by the way. I was a smoker when pack of cigs went
And I
over
think-
$7.
I think it's-
I was out. I mean, that
Right,
was it. It
but
was
there's a
up
lot
to
of
the
people
point.
who still smoke right now at $7, $8 a
Right,
pack, which is insane.
exactly.
But I mean, I do think that there's a big difference between big tobacco and what people are saying big soda. I mean, it's almost like, to me, it's like tobacco. And there was a huge wave happening back then when the tobacco issue happened. It was across the country. There was a lot of tobacco fund settlement issues happening. And this is sort of, I just look at the people that are supporting it and the causes with the exception of Olay, which does a lot of, they do a lot of grassroots organizing. There's just a different group of people who are supporting this and the impact of it, and a lot of the people who tend to actually drink the sodas, and again, not just sodas, but it's a lot of other types of, other than 100% juice, a lot of poor people can't afford 100% juice. So they're using, other forms of, and that's what they buy. And so I do think there's a regressive aspect to this. And I'm uncomfortable with it.
I have to
Yeah.
just jump in there.
Please.
The reports this week is Santa Fe has at least a $5 million surplus, and it may be a $15 million surplus. And so there are going to be raises for city employees.
Right.
So if that was part of why we were doing this, I think that's off the table.
That's right. Let me go back to the health thing for a quick sec. And if the idea, Dee Dee, is that we tax this thing, but is it, I started with this, is it reliable? Because we have lots of people not drinking these kind of drinks anymore. The graph is going like this, right? The amount of people drinking these kind of drinks is not growing, it's actually shrinking.
Well,
so how
go
does
to
that
an
work
elementary
out?
go to an elementary school and you'll find quite differently, and the results are very clear in the obesity rates, in the diabetes rates, and in some respects, yes, this tax is regressive because poor people drink a lot of soda because it is cheaper than other drinks, and we pay for it as a state by increased costs in the Medicaid program. I think that the latest statistics are we pay $343 million a year in increased Medicaid costs just because of obesity.
I agree with that aspect of it,
so
but I think to
Across all
social
of us, as they
engineering through taxation is a long-standing policy dating back to the beginning of our country. And you have public health advocates on one side of this dispute saying that is justified, and you have then the American Beverage Council, I've forgotten the exact name, organization. They are the only funders of the anti folks in Santa Fe. And
Yeah, because poor people
they
don't have
are
the money to
using
contribute.
The fiscal argument.
Let me get Laura in real quick. One last question. What do you make of the idea that some of the other munis out there who are doing this are using a sliding scale, meaning the amount of sugar in the drink depends on how much you get sort of dinged on the tax? Does that make sense to you, or is this one size fits all?
None of this makes sense.
None of it
to me.
makes sense. That doesn't
It
work for
doesn't-
me.
And also, I mean, I don't disagree with what the senator's talking about with regard to healthcare issues
Yeah.
and the rising costs and how that's a public problem.
Yeah.
But there's so many more issues that contribute to obesity in young people and obesity in general in our society. And there's so many other, the group of people that we're talking about that are going to be impacted by this regressive tax have so many other issues that, whether they drink a soda or not drink a soda is such a minor issue compared to food insecurity in general, you know, their home life, the stability, their parents, the culture in general, about whether it's creating an atmosphere for them to actually be educated in correct health, let alone in your basic reading and writing. I mean, there's just so many other issues. And so, and I think that tying it to pre-K education is really important, and we do need a solution. But I think I'm not surprised that the American Beverage Association is the only, and all the restaurateurs are the only ones supporting this. Poor people don't have the money to start putting into a campaign.
That's right.
That's the whole point.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are going to be impacted the most.
Let's see what Santa Fe says in May. Now, that's all the time we have for that soda tax deal.